Skidooing? You mean Blue? Just on the weekends, though. Oh, God, he's skidooing every day, isn't he? Hello, welcome. It's a beautiful day, it's a beautiful life, and of all the places you could be right now, you are choosing to spend your time with me watching this video, and I can't thank you enough for it. So what I'm going to do today is, I'm going to draw whatever the hell this is. This, Blue feeding her Steves. I'm going to refer to them all as Steves because I straight up refuse to learn their names. I'm just not doing it. Of all the useless information I have in my head, 90% of the things I have in my head, I'm not going to use. It's just factoids. If I'm sitting on the bus next to you and we start talking, then I'll say it. Aside from that, I might think about it in the bathroom. That's it. That's what 90% of my headspace is. And I'm just not going to add the other humans from Blue's Clues' names to it. I'm a grown-ass man. And if I don't know them by now, there's just no reason for me to learn the other Steve's names. And the real insidious thing about really, really useless information, the shit you know you don't need, is that you don't forget it, ever. And I can tell you right down to the minute. If I Google the names of the other Steves, it'll be exactly 12 days, 15 hours, and 2 minutes until I'm trying to fall asleep. And then I start thinking about those names and thinking maybe I'm confusing Steve with fucking Douglas or whatever the other Steve's name is. And then I'm going to Google it. And it's going to be, 2:30 in the morning when I Google it in bed. And then my eyes are going to react to the brightness of the phone and I'm going to keep Googling. And then within half an hour, I'm going to know all the backstory of each of these Steves. And then another 45 minutes, and I'm going to know which of the Steves or the actors that played them have nudes on the internet. It's not because I'm particularly attracted to Steves either, I need to know this shit. The time I finish Googling it, like Googling all of it, it's going to be like 4:30. And it's going to be, it's already not going to be like dark outside, it's going to be faintly blue and really clammy. And, I'm just going to be at that weird 4:30 purgatory of, do I go to sleep and just wake up like an asshole and have breakfast at 3 p.m.? Or do I, go and chain smoke outside of the grocery store until they open and just put my hood on and pray that nobody talks to me? Yeah, I'm just better off not knowing the other Steve's shitty names, whatever they may be. I'm better off just not even flattering the urge to look it up. And that little scenario I just described to you, that's only taking into account the American Steves. Like, there's reboots of that show in a bunch of different countries. England's got its own Blue's Clues Steve. It's this fat, bald man. In Latin America, they have a bunch of Blue's Clues guys. There's a new reboot that's coming out right now. So, I'm just gonna refer to them all as Steves. They can all be either one Steve or... It's not like I'm breaking continuity either. It's not like there's this immense continuity in the world of Blue's Clues that I'm fucking up by referring to them all as Steve. Because how does... Like, are they different people then? Like, is Blue the homeowner and is Steve some kind of, like just squatter that hangs out there? And when Blue replaces people, he just dips and another guy starts squatting. Is that what's going on? Like, Steve doesn't have a job. In the universe of the show, what exactly does Steve do? Yeah, now that I think about it, it's a fucked up relationship they have. Imagine if your dog was the breadwinner of the family. If your dog was the one bringing home the paycheck. And let there be no confusion here. Blue is the breadwinner. She's the one that brings home the bacon. Nobody would watch fucking Steve's show. Nobody would watch Steve's show. How would you even pitch Steve's show to the network execs? You'd call it, it can't be Blue's Clues. There's no Blue. It would have to be Childless Steve. This is an unwed man, mid-30s, just chronically unemployed, habitually unemployed, just never employed. He has a sweater. He's not really like a bachelor. He's, I guess, whatever the male equivalent of, like, the word spinster would be. That would describe Steve. So, yeah, it's this dude who has a sweater who has to crash at just a literal dog's house to live. You don't see him eat in the show ever. I think it's safe to assume that he like steals, I guess. Does he steal? That seems too productive for a Steve to even steal. He's just this freeloader. And his one redeeming quality, the one thing that brings value to Blue, enough for Blue to house him, is that he's able to read like letters written by children. That's the degree of his literacy. And that's, I mean, it's a short bar, but I assume Blue doesn't know many people. Like, the other people in the show, like, there's a veterinarian. Like, she doesn't want Steve's lifestyle. So, yeah, he's just a very detestable, pathetic man. And maybe that was intentional. Maybe the studio did that on purpose, wrote that character as a cautionary tale for children. Like, don't be a Steve. And they just give kids that example. And this is what happens when you live your life in the way that he did. Which is a great idea, honestly. I'd love to write children's shows like that. Just write characters that kids don't want to be like, and make stories like that for them. I think if I had to pitch one, mine would be, like, my Steve, it would be a very violent cocaine addict. Kids could learn a lot from that. He likes to gamble and drinks profusely and will betray or sell his body, whichever comes first, for cocaine. I mean, that would be hell. I hope we need to get up with the Blue's Clues people. That's the next Steve. We need to have a cocaine addict Steve. Yeah, we've already had like 15 seasons of Marxist parasite Steve. We need to diversify that shit with just more archetypes of dysfunctional men. We could have a substitute gym teacher Steve who could have gone semi-pro if it wasn't for one failed drug test in the 90s. We could have a sex offender Steve that even has a good ring to it. It's got the alliteration. I mean, to follow suit with Blue's Clues, it would have to be Steve's sex offenses. So, look, still a good show. It would give Steve a chance to run his own show instead of riding Blue's coattails for decades. And look, it has a good ring to it. It's got a good message for the kids. Now that this new generation, we're talking more about uncomfortable issues. We're talking about consent, teaching that to children. Sex offender Steve could be an invaluable tool. Just like the Steve in the Blue's Clues we all grew up on taught us the importance of entering the workforce to not end up like him. Sex offender Steve could teach children the importance of not being a sex offender. Alright, so we've discussed all of the important stuff. Let me just get into the drawing part of this drawing video. So, a little bit about what you're seeing on the screen. I started out just by sketching this out. Just with a regular pencil, laid out everything that I was going to do. And I didn't go into tremendous detail with any of it. I just laid out what I wanted to see on the paper, the important details, all of that. Then I took a picture with my phone of the drawing and put it into Procreate on the iPad. My next step after that was doing the line work. The way I approach line work is with 3 layers. One of them being the actual line work, one of them being the rough sketch at the very bottom, and then I do an in-between layer where I just go in, and it's also a sketch layer, but I fix the first sketch to where I get things more neat. I figure out exactly what I'm going to be tracing when I do the actual, like, inking part of it. And the importance of having that middle layer is that it makes the sketching part easier. It takes a lot of stress off of that part, because for the sketch, instead of actually drawing out fingers and doing all that, I can just leave it as a shape, Instead of doing facial features or whatever, I can just leave that as a shape too. I can have things very messy and just focus on getting all the shapes down, getting everything where it's supposed to be. And it also takes a lot of the guesswork out of doing the actual inking, like line work layer. Like, I don't want to be thinking at all while I'm doing my line work. I don't want to have to be fixing visual problems or figuring out how stuff looks. I don't want to do any of that. Like, for me, doing the actual line work part, it's such a smooth, thoughtless process where you're just focused on the texture of the line quality, the flow of everything, that having to worry about getting things right, it just makes it so much easier to have that in-between layer. And what you just saw a second ago, I threw in a little picture of Blue from the show and sampled the colors in. And it just makes it real easy. Yeah, so the last couple things I'm doing, I'm just finishing up coloring everything in, doing all the little details on the sweaters, getting those patterns right, and then, giving him some eyeballs, make this a little bit less creepy. And then, right now on the screen, I'm figuring out how I'm going to do the ribs. I was thinking of doing it as shading, and then I ended up just doing it as lines. And then the last little touch, throw in a fun little background. And, yeah. Right. You made it to the end of the video, and I cannot thank you enough. Seriously, thank you so much for being here, for taking time out of your day to check out what I'm doing, to show me love. And, yeah, thank you. If you're into coloring books and that type of thing, I've got this image that I drew in today's episode just as a coloring book page, black and white. So that's in the description. Click on it, print it out, color it in. If it looks good, send it to me. I'd love to see it. Also in the description, if you want a t-shirt, if you want to print, anything like that, links to all of it below. And if I'm forgetting anything, which I often do, that's going to be in the description as well. So yeah, just thanks for being here. Be good out there. Take care of yourselves. Live well. I'll see you next time.